Welcome back to The Deep Dive. I'm your host, and I'm joined, as always, by our resident expert.
Hello. It's great to be here.
So to start today, I really want to tap into a feeling. It's a very specific, almost a visceral sensation.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
You probably do. Picture this.
Yeah.
You're at a dinner party, or maybe you're just standing in your boss's office. Honestly, you could just be on the phone with your mother.
Right.
And the air in the room just shifts. It gets a little thin, and someone looks at you. Maybe it's a raised eyebrow, maybe it's a concerned frown, and they ask the question.
The dreaded question.
Why did you do that?
It is the universal spotlight moment, that instant anxiety of justification.
It really is, isn't it? It's that pit in your stomach where you suddenly feel like you are on trial. And it doesn't even matter if the crime is something totally trivial, like why you chose Comic Sans for the company newsletter.
Which, for the record, creates a visceral reaction in me on its own. Oh, me too. I can't stand it. But it could be that, or it could be a massive life pivot. Why aren't you going to your best friend's wedding? Or why on earth would you quit a perfectly stable job with benefits to go open a gluten-free bakery?
Yeah, it's the pressure to constantly explain our existence to everyone around us. Mm-hmm. And what is so fascinating about this, and what we'll get into today, is that most of us are incredibly terrible at it.
We really are.
We stumble, we over-explain, we get super defensive, or we start apologizing before we have even made our point.
Or we just freeze. I mean, I have definitely frozen. I've mumbled something about, just bad vibes and slowly backed out of the room.
We've all been there.
But that is exactly why I'm so excited about the stack of research we have today. We are looking at a series of transcripts from a program called Clear English, but we're going to do something a little bit different with them for this deep dive.
Right, because on the surface, these documents just look like language lessons.
Yeah, grammar, vocabulary. Exactly. They break down sentence structure and word choice. But if you look closer, which is what we spent the last week doing, you realize this isn't just an English lesson. It is a masterclass in communication strategy.
It really is.
It's basically a psychological toolkit for protecting your own agency.
And that is our mission today. We are going to treat this as a high-level strategy session because whether you are a native English speaker or you are learning the language, the psychology behind how you frame a decision often matters way more than the decision itself.
It's the framing effect.
Exactly. You can make a terrible decision, but if you explain it brilliantly, people will just nod along. And conversely, you could make a genius decision, explain it poorly, and everyone thinks you've completely lost your mind.
Framing effect in action. Our goal today is to unpack the specific language, the psychological frameworks, and all the strategies found in these texts. We want to move you, the listener, from that defensive, stuttering panic to a place of what I like to call calm, strategic articulation.
Calm, strategic articulation. I like that. But before we get into the nitty-gritty of the actual words, and we do have some very specific vocabulary to cover, I think it is important to flag something the source material hints at early on.
What's that?
Explaining decisions isn't just about convincing other people, is it?
No, absolutely not. And that is a crucial distinction to make right at the top. We so often think of explaining as this performance we do for an audience.
Like we're on stage.
Right. But the actual process of articulating a why is a primary tool for our own self-awareness. It clarifies our own motivations. The rule of thumb is if you can't explain it clearly to someone else, there is a very high probability you haven't fully explained it to yourself yet.
You're just kind of running on autopilot.
Exactly. You're acting on impulse.
So in a way, learning to explain your decisions to others is actually a method for making better decisions for yourself.
Precisely. Because it forces you to audit your own logic.
Okay, I love that framing. So let's get right into the toolkit. Section 1. I want to start with the building blocks. The source material spends a lot of time on what we might call the hierarchy of causality.
Yes.
Because it turns out not all reasons are created equal. And the specific words you use to bridge the gap between your action and your reason well, they change the entire emotional temperature of the conversation.
They act like little psychological levers. And the most basic one, the one we all use 20 times a day, is the word because.
Because. The ultimate workhorse word. I ate the sandwich because I was hungry.
Yeah.
I bought the car because it was red.
Right. Because is inherently personal. It creates a very direct line between you, the subject, and the reason. It's an intimate word. But in the texts, they make a sharp distinction between because and due to.
And at first glance, you might just think, well, due to is just a fancy way of saying because.
It's like putting on a tie.
Exactly, a verbal tie.
Yeah, but think about why we put on a tie. We do it to create formality. We do it to create distance. The text argues that due to is the heavy hitter in your vocabulary, is the formal wear of explanation.
So you wouldn't say, I missed the meeting because I overslept.
No. Or because traffic was bad. You say, I missed the meeting due to unforeseen circumstances.
Let's pause on that, though, because sometimes due to feels a little, I don't know, cold. If I tell my friend, hey, I can't come to your birthday party due to a scheduling conflict, I sound like a robot. I sound like a corporate press release.
And that is exactly the point. That coldness you're feeling, that is a shield.
Really?
Yes. When you use because, you are actively inviting the other person into your reasoning. You are opening the door for them to argue with you.
Oh, I see. Like if I say I'm not going because I'm tired.
Exactly. They'll just say, oh, you're tired. Have a coffee. You can nap later.
They negotiate.
But when you use due to, you are signaling that the cause is structural. It is official. It shifts the responsibility completely from a personal whim to some external factor.
So because is for your friends and due to is for the IRS.
Essentially, yes. Or for when you just need to establish firm boundaries in a professional setting. It signals to the listener, this is not up for negotiation.
That makes a ton of sense. It is all about the register you're operating in. Now, there was another small word in the text that I found surprisingly powerful. The word as. Like, as I was already committed.
As is incredibly subtle. It's a linker. It implies a pre-existing state of affairs.
As I was already in the neighborhood.
Right. Or as I had already signed the contract. It treats your reason as mere background information, something that is just an already settled fact in the universe. It's much less aggressive than because.
That's almost sneaky.
It kind of is. It assumes the listener already agrees with the premise before they even have a chance to think about it.
It's like smooth jazz for an argument. It just glides right past any potential objection. But let's talk about the big gun here. The source material highlights the sheer power of necessity, specifically the phrase, had to.
Ah, yes. This is honestly one of the most effective tools in the human language for avoiding conflict. I had to.
Think about the difference in impact. I chose not to come to your wedding versus I had to miss your wedding.
It changes the entire moral landscape of the sentence.
How so?
If you say, I chose not to, you are asserting your agency. You are essentially saying, I looked at the option of attending your wedding, and I looked at the option of staying home and watching TV, and I decided staying home was objectively better.
Which is an insult.
A massive insult.
Even if it's completely true.
Even if it is true, you can't say that. But if you say, I had to, that phrase completely removes volition. You are implying to the listener that the decision was forced upon you by the universe or your boss or the laws of physics.
It softens the blow.
Significantly. It's basically the it's not you, it's the situation defense.
But I have to push back a little. Does that really work on smart people? I mean, if I say to a good friend, I had to prioritize this work project, my friend knows that I technically could have quit my job and come to the wedding. I didn't literally have to do anything.
Sure. On a strictly philosophical level, we always have a choice. You could always choose to be unemployed.
Right.
But socially speaking, had to is an accepted shorthand. It translates to the cost of the alternative was unacceptably high. It signals that you are bound by duty, not by your own desire. And people generally respect duty. They get hurt when they are rejected by your desires.
That is a great way to put it. And that leads perfectly into what the texts call the past perfect defense. The phrase, I had planned to.
Oh, this is your timeline defense.
I had planned to be there.
I had planned to finish this report by Friday. It's incredibly effective because it immediately validates your character.
It proves you're a good person.
Exactly. It tells the listener, look, the real me, the virtuous, organized, loving version of me, fully intended to do the right thing.
It separates the person from the negative outcome.
I had planned to be there, but my flight was canceled. You establish your good intentions first. You get all the social credit for the intention, even though the actual action failed.
Because if you just walk in and say, I missed the flight, you sound careless.
You sound irresponsible. But if you say, I had planned to be there early, but suddenly you sound like a tragic victim of circumstance.
It frames the negative outcome as a surprise to you, too. Like, hey, I'm just as shocked and disappointed as you are.
Which brings us to how you actually build the argument once you've established that good intention. The text offers some really interesting transitional phrases. These act as kind of logic boosters.
Things like, furthermore, and what's more.
Right. When I read this, it felt like instructions for building a brick wall.
It is exactly like stacking bricks. You aren't just tossing out one reason, you are methodically building a fortress of logic.
Give me an example.
Let's say you're explaining why you are taking a sabbatical from work. If you just say, I need a break, well, that's weak. Someone can knock that over.
Take a long weekend.
Exactly. But if you say, I need to recharge, furthermore, I want to use the time to learn a new coding skill. What's more, I will come back to the company with a fresh perspective.
You just made the argument so much harder to knock down.
Right, because now to argue with you, they have to knock down 3 separate walls, not just one.
And it signals to the listener that you've really thought this through. Impulsive decisions usually only have one reason: I want it. But well-considered decisions, they have layers. Furthermore, in addition,
There was one more framing device in this vocabulary section that I really like. The essential part is, or what counts is.
I like to think of these as your camera direction.
Camera directions, like a movie director.
Exactly. Think of yourself as a director. When you say the essential part is, you are literally telling the audience where to point their eyes. You're saying, ignore all those messy details over there. Look right at this specific core value.
So if you totally screw up a project at work, you might say, look, it was chaotic, but what counts is that we caught the error before it went to the printer.
Yes. You are directing their attention to the silver lining. Or if you miss a friend's party, you say, the essential part is that I am incredibly happy for you, even if I can't be there in person.
You are telling them how to interpret your absence.
You're giving them the lens. You're saying, please interpret this as a logistical failure on my part, not an emotional failure.
I love that. It's taking total control of the narrative. Okay, so we have the toolkit now. We have the do to for distance, the had to for necessity, the stacking bricks for logic. But a toolkit is totally useless if you don't have a house to build.
And the hardest house to build is the professional one.
Oh, absolutely. So let's move to section 2, navigating professional decisions. Because this is where the stakes feel so incredibly high for people. You aren't just explaining a font choice anymore. You're explaining why you are leaving the so-called work family.
That phrase, work family, it is such a trap, isn't it?
It's the worst.
It is entirely designed to create guilt. You don't just quit a job, you are abandoning the family.
It's emotional blackmail baked right into the corporate structure. So let's look at the unpopular career move. You're leaving a stable job. Maybe your boss has been a mentor to you for years. The source material is very, very specific about what not to do here.
The absolute golden rule here, you do not complain, ever.
But what if the reason I'm leaving is that middle management is completely toxic and the office coffee literally tastes like battery acid?
It does not matter. It simply does not matter. You never walk in and say, I'm leaving because I'm bored or I hate the culture here.
Why not? Just be honest, right?
Because the moment you do that, you trigger their defensiveness. The boss instantly stops listening to your underlying why and just starts defending their own ego and their department.
So how are you supposed to frame it?
You use what the texts call the growth frame. You focus entirely, 100%, on strategic moves and new opportunities.
The script mentions specific phrases like, I felt like I wasn't growing, or I need to challenge myself.
Let's look at I felt like I wasn't growing. It is a brilliant phrase because it relies completely on I language. It's about your internal subjective landscape.
Which they can't see.
Right, and it's almost impossible to argue with someone's personal feeling. Think about it. If you say, this job is a dead end, your boss can pull out a corporate ladder chart and say, no, it's not. Look at the promotion track.
They can bring data to fight you.
But if you say, I feel like I need a new challenge, what can they possibly say? No, you don't feel that way.
You feel fine? Get back to your cubicle.
Exactly. It centers the entire decision on your personal evolution rather than the company's deficiencies. And crucially, it allows everyone in the room to save face. You are not rejecting them, you are merely growing. And everyone in business loves growth.
It does sound a bit like a pre-written script, though. Doesn't it feel disingenuous?
It feels like corporate speak, sure, because it is. But in a professional context, absolute truth is often much less important than grace.
Grace.
Yes, you are providing them with a transferable narrative. You are handing your boss a clean script that she can then go tell her boss.
Ah, why did Sarah leave? Oh, Sarah just needed a new challenge.
Exactly. That sounds so much better for everyone involved than Sarah left because she hates us in the coffee.
That is such a critical distinction. You are essentially helping them manage the PR fallout of your departure. Okay, let's dial up the difficulty. What about the freelance pivot? the text mentions this scenario of a translator leaving a solid corporate job to go rogue and freelance.
This is the classic risky move, and the skepticism you'll face from others is basically guaranteed.
Oh, for sure. You tell your parents or your more conservative friends, and they immediately hit the panic button. What about your health insurance? What about the pension? Isn't freelancing super unstable?
I can hear it now.
I can hear my mother's voice in my head right now. But you have a 401k match. So how do you talk to these skeptics?
You have to fundamentally reframe the core concepts of freelancing. First of all, you never talk about having free time.
Right. If you say, I want to freelance so I can sleep in on Tuesdays, you just sound lazy.
You sound like you're entering early retirement.
So what is the reframe?
You talk about control. You reframe the conversation around control over work-life balance and having the agency to choose specific projects. You make the choice sound highly active, not passive. And then the source material adds a very pragmatic layer that I love, the financial defense.
Which is what? Lying about how much money you're going to make.
No, not lying, but projecting confidence, mentioning the sheer potential for higher earnings.
Even if that's not why you're doing it.
Even if money isn't your primary motivator at all. Maybe you literally just want to work in your pajamas with your dog. But mentioning that you have crunched the numbers and you see a mathematically higher upside, that effectively shuts down the panic from the older generation.
It speaks the language of the skeptic.
Exactly. It proves you aren't just a naive dreamer. It shows you are a business person. It elevates the move from a hobby to a venture.
And to further prove that you aren't just being totally impulsive, the text suggests using the pros and cons method. But it's not just about doing the list. It's about actively talking about it.
Yes, explicitly listing them out loud in the conversation. You know, I looked at apartment A, which was way closer to work, and then I looked at apartment B, which had the better amenities. I weighed them both.
Sounds so simple, right? Almost elementary.
Hey guys, I made a list.
It does. But explicitly saying the words, I weighed the pros and cons, signals careful consideration to your audience. It's a performance of rationality. It shows them your math. It tells the listener, I didn't just wake up and flip a coin. I ran the data. And there was one more tactic in this professional section that I think is absolute genius for diffusing conflict, especially with managers, involving the stakeholder during the explanation.
Ah, yes. The validation loop.
Just asking, what do you think?
It is incredibly disarming. Let's say you are explaining a brand new strategy to a highly skeptical team. Instead of just standing at the whiteboard and lecturing them, you stop halfway through and you say, so here is my thought process so far. Does that make sense to you guys?
It forces them to engage with the logic.
It turns what would be a monologue into a dialogue. If you just dictate a decision from on high, people instinctively resist it. It's human nature. We push back against commands. But if you walk them through your puzzle and then ask for their input, even if the decision is technically already finalized, they feel like they are part of the process.
It completely shifts it from, I am doing this to you, to we are figuring this out together.
Exactly. It completely reduces that toxic us versus them dynamic.
Okay, so we've navigated the tricky career change. We've managed the boss's ego. But now we have to talk about the mess-ups. Section 3. The art of the apology and the quote-unquote bad decision. Because let's face it, eventually you're going to drop the ball.
It's inevitable. And this is where the rubber really meets the road. I always say anyone can explain a massive success. Explaining a failure, that is where you earn your professional reputation.
Well, the source material outlines a specific technique for rejection or for breaking bad news socially. Now, they don't actually use this term in the text, but looking at the structure they map out, it's the sandwich technique.
Ah, the infamous sandwich.
I feel like everyone in the corporate world knows this one, and honestly, everyone kind of hates it. You're great, you're fired, have a great weekend. It feels so manipulative.
Well, it is manipulative if the bread is stale.
If the bread is stale.
If the compliment you're giving is fake, the whole sandwich is garbage. We have all received that exact feedback. You're such a nice person, but your quarterly report was terrible, but keep smiling. It's borderline insulting.
So how do you make a sandwich that isn't totally gross?
The source material suggests a very specific, upgraded recipe. Step 1. Express sincere regret. Not a fake compliment, but actual verifiable feelings. I am so incredibly bummed. Step 2. Provide a clear, concise reason, and the absolute key here is the word concise.
Right. Do not over-explain, do not whine.
Keep it tight. And then step 3. Offer a solution or an alternative.
The alternative is the secret sauce.
It completely saves the interaction. Think about it. I can't come to dinner tonight. That is a flat rejection. But listen to this. I am so bummed I can't make it tonight due to this crazy deadline. But can we absolutely do lunch next week?
That feels completely different. That's not a rejection. That's just rescheduling.
Because it signals that the relationship itself still matters to you. It explicitly tells them, I am rejecting the calendar event. I am not rejecting you as a person.
Exactly. And this applies to work too. There's that great example in the text of the person missing a big conference due to illness.
Right. They didn't just email the team and say, hey, I'm sick, bye.
No. They offered their presentation slides. They offered all their notes. They offered to answer any questions via email from bed.
That is what the text refers to as mitigating the impact.
You are acknowledging that your decision or your unfortunate situation has a tangible cost for the other person.
And you are voluntarily stepping up to pay that cost. I know my absence inconveniences you. Here is exactly how I am going to try and fix it. It shows incredibly high professional responsibility.
But what about when it's not just bad luck? What about when you just made a massive mistake? The text has what they call the no excuses rule.
This is tough. I made a mistake. Full stop.
It is terrifying to say that out loud. My immediate instinct is always to say, I made a mistake, but the instructions you gave me were unclear, but I was really tired that day.
The word but instantly kills the apology. The but tells the listener that you aren't actually sorry for what you did. You just feel you were unfortunate. The source material discusses this fantastic example of a translator who misinterpreted a highly technical term. It was a total disaster for the client.
That sounds like an absolute nightmare scenario. You send out a translated document and it says, I don't know, install the explosive instead of install the exhaust.
Hopefully it wasn't quite that dangerous, but yes, a major error. And what did the translator do? They didn't blame the source text being messy. They didn't blame the tight turnaround deadline. They just said, I made a mistake. And then they executed something very important. The text calls it the hindsight pivot.
The hindsight pivot. I love that term. How does it work?
They use the phrase in hindsight, and then they briefly explain their original flawed thought process. I thought concept X implied concept Y, but I see clearly now that was incorrect.
Why does that help? You're still standing there admitting you were completely wrong.
It helps because it verbally separates the you of the present from the you of the past.
Oh, wow.
Right. The past you made the dumb mistake. But the present you, the one speaking right now, is smart enough to see the mistake, analyze it clinically, and fix it. You are essentially aligning yourself with the client against your former foolish self.
That is such a cool psychological trick. It's like saying, I totally agree with you. That guy who did the translation yesterday, he was an idiot. But I, the person talking to you today, I have learned.
Exactly. And then, crucially, they offered the fix. They offered to completely redo the work for free and put it at the top of their priority list. And do you know what the result was?
The client trusted them more.
The client trusted them significantly more than before the mistake happened.
That is the wild paradox of the bad decision. If you own it completely, without caveats, and you fix it aggressively, you can actually come out of it with a much stronger relationship than if you had never messed up in the first place.
Because you have actively proven your integrity under pressure. Anyone can be good and polite when things are easy. Being professional when things go horribly wrong is a much, much rarer skill. In business, we actually call this the service recovery paradox.
The service recovery paradox.
Yes. A customer who experiences a problem that is then resolved brilliantly is often far more loyal than a customer who never experienced a problem at all.
Okay, that is a huge takeaway for everyone listening. Own the mess up. Kill the excuses. Offer the fix. Now, let's shift gears entirely. We've talked about the specific words. We've talked about the professional corporate strategies. Now we really need to talk about the one variable that changes absolutely everything, the audience.
Yes.
Section 4, audience and context. Because you cannot use the exact same script for everyone in your life.
No, you'd sound insane. The text calls this the chameleon approach.
Because if I explain my weird career choices to my best friend the exact same way I explain them to a venture capitalist, one of them is going to think I'm crazy.
Right, you have to tailor it. The source material uses this great, simple example of studying abroad. It is the exact same underlying decision. I am going to move to France for a year. but the explanation completely splits depending on who is listening.
Right. So to the parents, what is the focus?
Safety, university accreditation, the concept of broadening horizons. It's a very responsible, grounded pitch. It's all about the return on investment for their child's long-term future.
And to the college friends.
We're going to experience a new culture. The food, the wine, the romance, the fun.
Right, because if you told your parents, hey guys, I'm going to France for the wine and the romance, they're going to lock your passport in a safe.
And if you told your college friends, I am going to France to ensure my university accreditation remains highly valid, they are going to stop inviting you to parties immediately.
It's so true. The text also gives us a much more high-stakes example with the startup job. They call it Mark's story. Mark is leaving the safe, big corporate ship to get into a tiny dinghy in the startup ocean.
Right. So when Mark talks to his parents, who predictably value security above all else, he talks about stock options and calculated risk. He frames the whole thing as a high-reward investment. He probably spends a lot of time talking about the unique experience he'll gain that will make him even more employable later if the startup fails.
But if he were sitting across from his new investors, or the founders?
He definitely wouldn't talk about his personal stock options or his backup plan. That sounds selfish and uncommitted. To them, he would focus entirely on the market, the ROI, the market size, the disruption of the industry. He aligns his personal why perfectly with their financial goals.
This brings us to a really tricky group of listeners, the skeptics.
Oh, yes.
The people who are just absolutely determined to poke holes in your decision, no matter what it is. We all have that one friend or relative.
The aggressive questioner at the family dinner. Why would you do that? That seems incredibly unsafe. That seems foolish.
How are you supposed to handle that without just getting into a screaming match?
This is where the psychology gets really interesting. The text identifies something called the projection problem.
Projection.
Yes. Often, when people aggressively and relentlessly question your life choices, they are not actually analyzing your reality at all. They are projecting their own internal fears onto you.
So if they happen to be highly risk-averse, they will look at your life and tell you your risk is too high.
Exactly. They are basically saying, I wouldn't have the stomach to do that, so you shouldn't either. They are subconsciously trying to validate their own safe choices by invalidating your bold ones.
So how do you handle that? The text gave us the baker example.
Yes, the friend who quits her safe corporate job to open a bakery. It is the classic dream move that absolutely terrifies parents. But notice what she did. She didn't just walk in and say, I love baking.
Right, because I love baking is just a hobby.
It's an emotion, and you cannot argue someone out of an emotion, but you also can't rely on it to calm them down.
So she brought the receipts.
She literally presented a business plan. She showed them her savings account. She walked them through her fallback plan. The brilliant strategy here is to address their specific projected fear with hard data. If their root fear is financial ruin, do not answer them with passion. Answer them with a spreadsheet.
That is such an incredibly good rule of thumb. Diagnose the fear. If the fear is safety, answer with security protocols. If the fear is money, answer with a budget.
You have to speak the language of their anxiety. If you try to answer their deep anxiety with your boundless enthusiasm, you are just going to talk right past each other.
Now, speaking of talking past each other, the source material touches on something that I think is increasingly critical in our modern global world, cultural nuances.
Yes. The direct versus indirect communication spectrum. This is a huge factor.
The Japan example in the text was totally fascinating to me. The colleague who never actually said the word no.
Right, because in many Western cultures, particularly in the US and Northern Europe, we highly value directness. We mistakenly believe that clarity always equals honesty. We want people to say, I disagree with you because of X, Y, and Z.
But in the example, the international colleague just says, that is an interesting idea. We will consider it.
Which, to an overly direct Western communicator, sounds like a firm maybe or even a polite yes. They walk out of the room thinking, great, they're considering it, we're moving forward.
But in that high context culture, that phrasing is a polite screaming no.
It is a brick wall no, but it is a no carefully wrapped in relationship preservation. The source material warns us that what is seen as admirable confidence and transparency in one culture can easily be perceived as incredibly rude, arrogant, or socially destructive in another.
So the core advice there is don't just assume your crystal clear explanation is actually clear if you haven't accounted for the cultural filter of the listener.
Research is key. If you are explaining a major decision internationally, or honestly, even just across different corporate cultures within the same country, ask a cultural insider first. Ask them, how would this land? If I say, I chose this path because I wanted to, does that make me sound empowered or does it make me sound selfish?
Wow. Okay, so we've covered the mechanics of the words, the professional strategies, how to deliver bad news, and how to read the audience. But there is a deeper layer here that we have to get to. We need to go inward.
Section 5.
Section 5, the psychology of the why. Because explaining isn't just external.
No, this is the internal game, the messy part of the human brain.
The intuition problem.
Yeah.
We've all been here. You make a major decision simply because it just felt right. You walk into an open house and you instantly know you want to buy it.
Yeah.
You interview a person for 5 minutes and you just know you want to hire them.
Right. But you can't exactly say that in a board meeting.
No. Vibes are not usually accepted as a key performance indicator. You can't put gut feeling on your quarterly review.
So how do you explain intuition to others without sounding completely flaky? The strategy the text suggests is to focus strictly on the outcome you envision. Intuition, neurologically speaking, is usually just your brain doing complex pattern recognition much faster than your language centers can keep up with.
So you have to slow it down.
You slow it down and you look at the predicted result. Instead of saying to your team, I just feel like we should hire this guy, you say, I believe this candidate will bring a level of rapid adaptability that our team is currently missing, which will directly lead to better cohesion.
You frame the gut feeling as a predictor of a highly tangible benefit. You basically work backwards from the result.
Exactly. And that connects perfectly to this other concept they discuss, post-rationalization.
The idea that we often just act first and then scramble to figure out the why later.
Humans are absolutely famous for this. We love to think of ourselves as perfectly rational creatures who gather data, analyze it, and then act. But modern neuroscience suggests we are actually rationalizing creatures. We act impulsively, and then our brain, the internal interpreter, scrambles to write a coherent script that makes us look perfectly logical to the outside world.
It's like we are constantly rewriting our own history in real time.
We are nonstop storytelling machines. The source material had that wonderful, very human anecdote about the teacher who decided to switch from teaching older kids to teaching much younger kids.
Yes, she made the switch, but initially she couldn't explain why at all. People kept asking her, why take a pay cut? Why deal with screaming toddlers all day? And she just kept saying, I don't know, I just wanted to.
It was only much later through active reflection, and the text mentions the act of journaling specifically here, that she finally realized she missed playfulness. She missed making animal sounds.
I really love that tiny detail in the text. She missed making animal sounds. It is so profoundly human.
But the key is, she had to do the hard detective work on her own brain to finally find that articulation. She literally could not explain it to her peers until she had successfully post-rationalized it for herself in a journal.
So journaling isn't just, for teenage angst. It is a highly practical tool for constructing your own professional narrative.
Absolutely. It helps you hunt down the right words so that when your boss or your mother finally does ask why, you already have the script loaded and ready to go.
And once you have that perfect narrative, you have to actually deliver it. Which brings us to the final piece of this psychological puzzle.
Confidence.
Confidence is the delivery vehicle. You can have the best script in the world, but the text explicitly states people respond to tone just as much as they respond to content.
We've all seen this play out. Someone says something that is factually totally wrong, but they say it with such absolute unwavering conviction that everyone in the room just nods in agreement. And conversely, someone else has the exact right answer, but they mumble, they look down, they apologize before they speak, and everyone just ignores them. If you sound apologetic about your own decision, you're practically inviting people to critique it. You are handing them a red pen and asking them to grade you.
The imposter teacher story from the text was really relatable on this point. She felt unqualified, and her students immediately sensed it.
It's like dogs smelling fear. Teenagers are absolute sharks for adult insecurity.
So what was her fix? Did she just stand in front of a bathroom mirror and chant affirmations?
No, and I'm very glad the text didn't suggest that sort of pop psychology fix. The actual fix was rigorous preparation. This is the deeply unsexy truth about real confidence. It almost always comes from prep.
What did she do?
She recorded herself teaching. She forced herself to watch the tape. And she caught all of her own nervous physical tics.
She actually did the grueling work.
She, quote unquote, faked it till she made it, but she backed up the faking with intense self-awareness. It wasn't just blind arrogance, it was practiced competence. She practiced her explanations over and over until they sounded completely natural.
So the takeaway there is, if you are incredibly nervous about explaining a big life decision to your boss or your family, literally rehearse it. Yeah. Record it on your phone.
Listen back to it. Do you sound whiny? Do you use the word every 3 seconds? Do you use an upward inflection so you sound like you are asking for permission? Fix the tone, and the content will land 10 times harder.
Now, before we wrap this up, there's one final critical boundary that the source material draws. And honestly, I think this is my absolute favorite part of the whole document, is about privacy.
Yes. You do not owe everyone an explanation.
I feel like we need to say that again for the people in the back.
You do not owe everyone an explanation. We live in this bizarre culture of massive oversharing. We feel obligated to justify every breath we take. But the text gives us some incredibly useful, firm phrases for simply shutting down the interrogation.
Phrases like, I'm not comfortable discussing that.
Or, it's a long story. Or simply, I have a personal matter to attend to.
Simple, clean, unarguable.
The trap we all fall into is over-explaining. And this usually stems directly from deep insecurity. We desperately seek validation by just vomiting words at people. We think, if I just keep talking and giving you more reasons, eventually you'll agree with me.
There was that mention in the text of the project manager who explained her new color coding system to her team for 15 straight minutes.
15 minutes. On color coding, she genuinely thought she was being thorough and helpful.
But what did the team actually think?
They thought she was wildly insecure. They thought she was begging for their approval for a completely minor administrative choice. It totally undermined her authority as a leader. A truly confident leader just says, the new system is color-coded for efficiency, and then moves on to the next agenda item.
So in many cases, silence, or at least extreme brevity, can actually be the ultimate power move.
Brevity signals confidence. I did this. It is done. We are moving on.
Wow. So let's try to bring this all together. We have unpacked a tremendous amount of ground today. We've built brick walls of logic. We've made apology sandwiches. We've quit our corporate jobs to bake bread.
We have certainly been busy.
Synthesis time. If the listener sitting at home or in their car takes away 3 core things from this entire deep dive, what are they?
Number 1, vocabulary matters immensely. Know the exact difference between because and due to. Use had to when you need to externalize necessity. Use these specific words as literal levers to shift the emotional weight of your explanation.
Number 2.
Strategy. You must tailor the message to the audience in front of you. Don't try to sell fun to your anxious parents, and don't sell safety to your aggressive investors. And when you inevitably mess up, adopt the service recovery mindset. Apologize cleanly, pivot to hindsight, and offer a tangible fix immediately.
And the third takeaway.
Psychology. Understand that explaining is primarily an internal game. Do the hard detective work, like journaling, to find your own actual why before you open your mouth. Project confidence through rigorous preparation. And always remember that you have the fundamental right to remain silent.
And the ultimate, so what here? Why does any of this actually matter? Why should someone spend an hour of their life listening to us talk about this?
It matters because explaining decisions isn't really just about winning a debate or getting your way in a meeting. It is fundamentally about building trust. It's about relationship maintenance. Whether you are explaining a blown deadline to a client or a massive life change to your partner, the ultimate goal is understanding. You want them to truly see you, to understand your core values, even if they completely disagree with the specific choice you made.
That is the goal.
Yeah.
Understanding, not necessarily agreement.
Precisely. We can agree to disagree all day long as I understand exactly why you are standing where you are standing.
That's beautiful. Here's the final provocative thought to leave you with. We spent this entire deep dive talking about how to precisely explain things to other people. But the source material hints at something much deeper. Sometimes you simply cannot convince everyone. The skeptical friend will never, ever get the bakery idea. The strict parents will never get the freelance life.
Right. They just won't.
The ultimate suggestion is that if you can explain it to yourself effectively, if you have done the hard journaling, the reflection, the honest weighing of the pros and cons, that matters infinitely more than explaining it to anyone else in the world.
Because authenticity is the ultimate persuasion tool. If you truly, deeply believe in your choice, you don't need to explain it to anyone for 15 minutes. You just live it.
And on that note, stop explaining. and start living. Thanks so much for joining us on this deep dive. We will see you next time.
Good.